You buy $1 million dream home, and before you even move in, a letter arrives. Not a welcome note, but a warning.
I've been watching your house for generations. I know your children's names. I've seen them playing inside. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested?
This isn't the plot of a horror movie. This is real. Westfield, New Jersey, a quiet, affluent town, family-friendly, peaceful and safe. In June of 2014, Derek and Maria Broadus bought 657 Boulevard, a stunning 6-bedroom house, a place to raise their 3 young children. They had just closed the deal. $1.3 million. The home was spacious, elegant and full of charm. But what they didn't know was that they had just stepped into someone else's obsession. They dreamed of barbecues in the backyard, holidays in the living room, and laughter echoing through the hallways. But instead, it became a nightmare. Derek was a successful insurance executive. Maria, a mother of 3, she'd grown up nearby. They had saved, they had waited, and now they had it. The house was perfect. Hardwood floors, spacious kitchen, ivy crawling up the exterior, a large front porch that caught the morning sun. It was quiet here, peaceful, or so it seemed. They hadn't even moved in yet. Derek was visiting the house one evening, checking on renovations. He walked to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. Among the flyers and bills was one envelope, thick paper, no return address, handwritten. He opened it, and what he read chilled his blood.
Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood.
The letter started off polite, but quickly the tone changed.
657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now. I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls?
Derek read the letter again, slower this time. His heart was pounding. It wasn't just the tone, it was the details. The letter mentioned the children.
You have 3 young bloods, I see. I've seen them painting at the window.
No names were used, but the descriptions were too accurate. Someone had been watching. Someone was still watching. When Derek showed the letter to Maria that night, her face drained of colour. They locked the doors, turned off the lights, peered through the blinds like prisoners in their own dream home. They contacted the police. An officer came, read the letter, and looked unsettled. He asked if they had any enemies, any feuds. They didn't. The officer suggested not telling anyone, yet. It could be a prank, he said. But in his eyes, they saw something else. He didn't believe that either. 2 weeks later, another envelope, same handwriting, no return address, no fingerprints.
Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I've been watching you unload cartons of furniture. Have you found what is in the walls yet? In time, I will.
This time, it mentioned the children again. It even called them by nicknames the Broaduses thought only family knew. The level of detail was invasive. The fear turned physical. Maria's hands shook. Derek couldn't sleep. They were being watched, and they didn't know from where. They installed cameras, motion detectors. They created a spreadsheet of neighbours Who walked by at what times? They studied the mailman's route. Was it the woman who always wore sunglasses? The teenage boy who rode by on his bike too slowly? Everyone was a suspect, and still the letters kept coming. The Broaduses had not moved in yet. They couldn't. They visited the house in brief moments, never at night. Maria began having nightmares. The children's toys sat unopened. What was supposed to be a haven became a haunted shell. The police had no leads. The neighborhood was silent, but someone was still watching everything. The letters no longer came on a schedule. Weeks might pass with silence. Then, without warning, another one would arrive, always addressed by hand, always watching. There was no signature, no trace, just one name: the Watcher. The Broaduses handed the letters to police. Investigators tried to trace the postmarks. One was sent from a nearby town. Another, mysteriously processed from Kearney, New Jersey, but no cameras showed who sent it. A handwriting expert analysed the script. Nothing conclusive. DNA was recovered from one envelope. Female, but not Maria. Not in any criminal database. The trail dead. The Broaduses turned to private investigators, hired a retired FBI profiler. He said the letters were deliberate, calculated. The author was intelligent, patient, likely in their 50s or 60s, someone with deep resentment, a malevolent observer. They started watching the neighbours, the house behind theirs, the recluse 2 doors down. One neighbour had adult children living in the basement. Could it be them? But every lead was just suspicion. Every smile at the grocery store could be a mask. Maria stopped sleeping. Derek drank more. He began walking the house alone at night, flashlight in hand, hoping, or fearing, to find someone. Their children asked, "Why can't we go home, Daddy?" But how do you tell a child their home is being watched? That someone is waiting for blood? The house was old, built in 1905. Its walls were thick, layered with plaster, brick and secrets. The letter had said, "Have you found what is in the walls yet?" That phrase infected their minds. What was in the walls? Derek became obsessed. He walked from room to room with a stethoscope, knocked on drywall, measured studs, opened crawl spaces, pried floorboards. Was it just a metaphor, or a threat, or was there actually something inside? Maybe it was a reference to surveillance, hidden cameras, microphones, or something worse, something living. Had someone once lived inside the walls? A secret occupant? Westfield was no stranger to hidden histories. There were rumours of bootleggers in the 1930s, underground tunnels, forgotten basements sealed long ago. Maria began hearing things, whispers in the ductwork, thuds in the attic when no one was home. One night, she thought she saw movement in a mirror, but when she turned around, nothing. Fear began to rot their minds. They weren't just afraid of the Watcher anymore, they were afraid of the house itself. Derek searched public records. He discovered that 657 Boulevard had been owned by only a handful of families over a century. One family had left suddenly in the 1980s. Another, in the 60s, had suffered a nervous breakdown, though the records were vague. Nothing concrete, no smoking gun, but that was the most terrifying part. The Watcher left no fingerprints, just words. And words, it turns out, that can haunt deeper than anything hiding in the walls. Westfield, New Jersey, looked safe. The kind of place where lawns are trimmed, neighbours wave, and secrets stay buried. But once the Broadus family shared the letters with police, the surface started to crack. Detective Leonard Lugo led the case. He questioned neighbours, examined each letter. There were no fingerprints, no surveillance footage, no tangible suspect. But suspicion? That was everywhere. Next door lived the Langford family. Peggy, an elderly widow, lived there with her adult children. One son, Michael, stood out. He was odd. Neighbours described him as strange but harmless. But he fit the profile. Mid-50s, intelligent, and lived in that house for decades. Police questioned him. He denied everything, calmly and there was no evidence. The neighbourhood began to whisper, not about the watcher, but about the family. Maybe they made it all up. Maybe it was a scam. Maybe they just had buyer's remorse. But only one house kept receiving letters. They never moved in, not even for a single night. After hundreds of thousands spent, after years of planning, they left 657 Boulevard in silence, and the house waited. The Broaduses listed the home, but who would buy a cursed house? A house with headlines, a house with a shadow inside. Buyers backed out, real estate agents refused to market it, and Derek, he couldn't let it go. He returned to the house alone, sometimes late at night, sometimes just to sit in his car outside, watching. He started renting the house short term. One tenant reported strange things, footsteps, voices. Then one morning, they found a letter.
You have claimed this house as your own, but you do not understand it. Maybe you've seen the signs, and maybe one day you'll pay the price.